Rolling first episode. Well, hello everyone. How you going?
Here we are.
Good to be here.
Yeah, all black. It's just like dipping your.
Monotoning.
I thought it might be sort of dipping your cap to the way I like to dress all the time.
I think I personally model myself on you, mate. So I don't actually dress like you, but it seems like I have today.
And I model myself on Nick, so
You model yourself. Well, let's just introduce everybody around the room because anyone who's watching this doesn't know who's who in the zoo. So let's start right over there with you, Jonah.
Yeah, my name's Jonah. What do I say?
Well, what do you do?
Well, I do. I'm head of production here at Mentored.
And Straight Talk.
And Straight Talk. Yeah, we look after all
And
your
you're
podcasts.
a very young guy.
Yeah, I'm 22 years old.
22 and a gun.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Mike.
So
Absolute gun.
No, gun.
Yeah.
You're responsible for all the unbelievable promos and all the video and all the editing, etc. Kills it. And like today we're talking about Project 100. This is the Project 100 team, by the way. So who's next? You better introduce yourself, Mr. Morgan.
Thanks for the intro, MB. I am head of content of Mental Studios. I look after the creative and social aspects of all the content that we churn out here, and then also organising all the guests and facilitate and get all the fun people on the podcast. And
Yeah, you're the dude reaching out to everybody and getting the rejections.
yeah.
Well, by the way, everybody, that is me actually.
The tide has turned, though.
So when the DM
tide's
goes
turned.
out in my name, that's me. That's really me.
yeah.
But written by him.
course.
He really
But-
wants you
but-
on his podcast.
But I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Maddie, new to the team.
Yeah.
So, Maddie, you're our resident science researcher, and talk about yourself just a little bit. Like, tell us. By the way, you didn't get the memo about the dress sense, but don't worry. It's
Yeah, I'm
okay.
definitely the fly in
Next
the
time.
ointment today, but that's all right. I'll ride with it. So I'm Maddie Massey. I'm a scientist turned science communicator, and I'm the self-appointed brains behind this whole operation, I would say.
So,
Yeah.
so if
The
anything
most
goes
important
wrong,
role.
blame it on her.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark Bouris, but I'm going to go over to Fordo.
Yes, mate of Mark. We've worked together for about 15 plus years.
Yeah.
In managing Mark and his career and
Wasn't
away-
that hard, was it?
No, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an honour to work with
I
you.
say it was a breeze. It was easy.
Yeah, it was very easy. Actually,
Never really any challenge. We never had any Ray Donovan moments.
No. I didn't have to. Clean
Kill
up.
anyone.
No,
Or
no, not at all.
Eliminate anyone.
Nothing
Yeah.
we can talk about today. But no, we obviously had a working relationship and
And a partner in the business too.
it's expanded into podcasts. We started this podcast down the road under the Coke sign in King's Cross. I don't know, was it 12 years ago or something like that?
It was a long time. It was those days I used to turn up to the podcast in a pair of shorts and t-shirt.
And how we've grown, we've got our own studio now, an incredible team, and so we're colleagues and we're business partners and we're mates as well. And I've got a strong interest in this of understanding more about it. I'm 45 and I want to live to 100 as well. So it's going to be interesting to go through this process and understand more and help Maddie cut through the bullshit that seems to be very confusing for a lot of people out there.
And to your right,
Max,
Yes, hello. I'm Max. I work alongside Nick and also very closely with Jonah and Sam in the Mentored business. Working with Nick for 4 years. And Mark was actually, I think, the first client you put me onto, which was obviously throwing me very heavily in the deep end, but that's all right. Working closely with Mark for the last 4 years. So, been pestering him most days with calls and texts and don't usually get a response, but keen to get into...
Oh my God. Starting in
Thank
hot.
God for Cassie.
Thank God, Cassie.
we probably should have got Cassie in, but and we got one other member, Cassie, who's not here today. Thanks very much, Max. Thanks, guys. It's this is pretty unusual. Like, we're not going to do every episode like this, but we decided to make this the first episode, just to introduce everybody, because I think it's important to talk about the team, who the team is. That way, all the responsibility is not going to fall on me if something goes wrong. You now know who they are. And but it's important to know that there's a team behind this. And what we're going to do is, through the various members of the team, reach out to various people out there where we can, like influencers and scientists and specialists and experts in all the areas we're going to touch on. And that's pretty important to us. None of us are doctors. None of us are medical practitioners. We're just normal people all of us. And I guess our goal is to try and normalize this complex concept of longevity, which I guess we should talk about what we all think longevity means. Lifespan, health span, that type of thing, and try and normalize it. And what I mean by normalize it, sort of democratize it, make it available in terms of content to at least every Australian. And you know, and that's not going to be an easy task, but it's confusing, it's complicated, but it's a really important goal, I think, for everybody. And I don't mean it in a sense of vanity or greediness in terms of time on the planet or that type of thing, but it's probably important that we all at least know what we're up for, and maybe find out a few ways that we can navigate a way around what we're up for. So maybe we should start off on...
I was actually going to say the one of the reasons of doing this catch up today, when we've been planning this series, and there's obviously so much to cover, we were planning on just jumping straight into the series and covering sleep and nutrition and different things. But we put a brakes on that as well. While we're getting all that sorted and got Maddie on board as well, I wanted to highlight that, you know, this is not something you've thought of and thought, oh, I'm going to start to live like this. I've known you a long time, and I've always been inspired to go, you're in incredibly good shape. You know, you're incredibly successful at what you do professionally. And the mix of those things, you know, it's a magic formula in terms of you've been doing this, and whether you haven't been aware of you've been doing it, like, but just having a healthy lifestyle and being, you know, incredibly active in terms of looking after yourself and training and boxing and those types of things. So I wanted to sort of make sure that we don't just jump straight into the series, but sort of tap into you as well, because you're the guinea pig in this. You know, they're going to be plugging you up with things, and
fuck, I hope I don't die during the series.
No, and ice baths and everything is, you know. But I just wanted to. That's why having this discussion of, you know, it's like, where do we start with this, you know? And that's why I thought a great opportunity for all of us to get together and have this discussion, because before we just start talking to experts, you know, I want to ask you the question: why are we doing this? What's your why with this?
It's a good question. I mean, I keep sort of thinking it over and over again, and I'm sort of refining it a lot. And maybe if you ask me at the end of the series, and I don't know when the series is going to end, maybe after 30 years, hopefully we're doing this for the next 30 years. And it'd be interesting to look back in 30 years' time on me now, look at myself now, and look at myself in 30 years' time. But why am I doing this? One, I think needs to be done. I think that's an important thing. And I'm the self-appointed person to do it. Like, at the moment, like, everyone who's doing this is, you know, we all listen to Hoopman and Atia and also Simon Hill up there in Byron, who's got a really big following. And there's lots of others. But they're all technicians. They all speak in quite dense terms, and it's not real plain English. You can easily get lost in what they're talking about, easily get confused about all types of topics. And sometimes I find myself left more confused after listening to something, if I can remember what they said, literally the next day, more confused. So I thought, I wonder if maybe I could just try and unpick this a little bit. That's one. That's why we're doing. I want to do the show, hopefully successfully. But why am I doing it personally? My dad passed away this year, and he was nearly 90. Like, he was a whisker away of 90. Always really healthy his whole life. And I used to go and see my dad every Saturday. And on a Saturday, I would always talk stories. He'd tell me stories about where he came from, and, you know, in Greece and stuff, and what it was like. And I used to love observing him for me as an iconic person to sort of try and emulate in my life, copy. And one of the things that I noticed used to give him a great deal of joy and sort of peacefulness in a healthy way, like, was seeing me there with any one of my sons and with any one of their sons. So 4 generations of Bouris boys. We don't have any girls. We're all boys, sons and grandsons. So, and I thought I'd like to be able to do that one day in my life. So I quickly calculated, because everything in my life started later than my dad's life. So my dad had me when he was 22 or something, and then I had kids pretty young. I had my first son when I was 25, and so Dad got to enjoy that process pretty early. So I calculated how old I have to be to emulate him, to copy that, or to get that sensation that he was getting. I worked out I have to be 100. And then I also read that book called 4,000 Weeks, which is, according to Peter T, his favourite book. And I realised I've only got like 600 odd weeks to go based on that book, or based on general statistical death rates in the world, particularly here in Australia for males. So I've got to sort of try and buy myself 20 more years. That's just another 1,000 weeks. So I thought, how am I going to do that? So I got started getting involved and listening to Peter Tier and doing all this sort of research. And so I thought, well, what's a better way of doing this? Actually to expose myself to it. And if I put myself in the podcast, I've got nowhere to hide.
So making longevity accessible for everyone and staying alive.
That's it. And optimizing the way you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because my man lived a really healthy life right up until like a month before he died. Never suffered, had little bits and pieces going on, but pretty much was always in good shape. He didn't spend the last 10 years on a respirator or something. He got cancer, but he didn't suffer for years on chemotherapy or anything like that. So, and you know what that's like, because your dad suffered.
Yeah, well, my dad passed away, and another reason for me so interested in this, and on my own health journey, my dad passed away from cancer 5 years ago this November at 75 years of age. And I'd worked with him, very close to him. I worked with him every day for 25 years. And, that was for me a thing as well, going, I don't want to die. I would have loved my dad to be around for another 20 years, even 10 years, 5 years. So that sort of kicked me into gear as well to get my shit together.
It's interesting. And it's like being a bit selfish. You guys are younger, so, I guess you're not worried about not living past 81. But you might be thinking about your parents or somebody else in your life, like some loved person in your life. And a lot of this is selfishness. And I reckon there's nothing wrong with it. Like, why not be selfish about at least enjoying your life?
But is it selfish, Mark? Because if you're living a healthier life for longer, it means you don't have a burden placed on your family to look after you.
And that's a good point too. That's a very good point. Particularly like things like dementia, which is, one of Peter T's. And by the way, I'm going to borrow from all these guys all the time. I'm, one of the 4 horsemen, what he calls 4 horsemen. Dementia is, one of the neurodegenerative diseases which people can die from or do die from. And like if you're a kid, your age, looking after someone who's got dementia, it's not just the physical burden, but, it's debilitating because they don't know who you are. They might get upset or angry. There's reasons why, you want them to live optimization better, longer. And the question then is, well, how do we detect dementia? At what point do we detect dementia? And obviously, like everything, the earlier you get to these things, the longer the length of period of time that they can stay, let's call it normal, before they get into that sort of degenerative period where they're really neurodegenerated and they actually don't know what the hell they're doing. So maybe a good start is, what do we mean by longevity?
I was going to ask a question. Maddie, you being the resident Brains Trust, scientific Brains Trust, I was going to ask you, like, longevity is such an it sort of word at the moment. And there's so much, even just on my Instagram, maybe because I'm, the stuff that I follow, I look up, but when you just get served so much stuff these days, in a nutshell, can you give us a sort of, what's your thoughts on longevity of what you know through your studies, but what you're seeing out there, and how much misinformation is actually really out there?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I think almost everyone is afraid of dying, or to be more accurate, afraid of getting old and getting sick. And the more interest there is on a topic, the more noise there is, the more people there are coming out who are offering recommendations and solutions, some of which are scientifically based and some of which are not and may even be detrimental to you. So I think this is one of the most contentious areas and one of the areas that people try to monetize the most. So that means that there are a lot of experts out there, I have inverted commas, by the way, when I say that, who are trying to sell you an idea, a product, a solution, a silver bullet that's just going to change your life and rescue you. And I think it's really important that we're doing this now to actually go straight to people who are doing research in these areas and to take what they know and distill that into something that actually makes sense and actually matters, and sort of get away from all of the crowded messages that are going on. Because it is, I would say, I came from cancer research. That was an incredibly crowded area with a lot of different cures and solutions and things like that. But longevity may be even worse.
But that doesn't mean it, because I still want to try all this shit.
Oh,
So-
I want you to as well.
So do I.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, because, because I think it's cool, fun too. Like, I mean, I actually was on some creatine jelly, what do you call them? The creatine in the jelly.
In the jelly, yeah.
Jelly. There's all these
Gummy? Yeah.
gummies. That's it. Yeah.
Whenever something's in a gummy, I just go, oh, God.
Yeah, I know. And I'm just trying to work out whether it does anything for me. Like someone who's been, hit in the head a lot in my life. Creatine's an important thing to start to look at, and I just find creatine monohydrate in a drink tastes dreadful.
Yeah,
it's hard to drink, And the gummies are pretty easy to eat, but they're probably all bullshit anyway. But I keep getting sent this stuff. I didn't even buy it; it just turns up. Because you guys put the post out about
we got more at the
100.
back as well.
Yeah.
Sorry?
There's stacks at the back as well.
More stuff.
Yeah,
There's stuff arriving all the time. And by the way, keep bringing it in because we will try it.
Yeah.
No, we're going to try all these weird shit, and and also we're going to try stuff that has more scientific basis, or at least some analysis on.
Yeah.
Just on that, none of these products existed like 5 years ago.
No,
like
totally.
in terms of, yes, there's always been supplements and vitamin extracts and those types of things around, but all these products, when you actually think about how the market, even just looking at things these days, like hydration's become a big thing. It's like all of a sudden 5,000 literally new brands pop up over 3 months.
Yeah.
You feel like you need it. You're like, oh, I need to be.
It's like, oh, wow, water, new thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, it's interesting with the dynamic that we have, like, obviously back to what you two were talking about in like terms of your why. I'm not sure what you, Jonah, Sam and Maddie, like my reasoning for being so involved and interested in this space is more so around like quality of life rather than actually living longer, because I'm kind of not at that stage in your life yet to think that way. So I don't know, it's kind of, as much as like it is, you're still thinking about that sort of thing, it's more like the actual well-being aspect of these practices that we're going to delve into.
And why? I mean, like when I was your age, I was out destroying myself. Why do you not? I mean, you maybe reserve that for every now and then. Still, you don't have to make any admissions.
Yeah.
I know your mum and dad will be watching this.
Mouth shut.
But why is it a generation of people like yourselves actually more interested, or at least equally interested now, and not looking forward to the big night on Friday night and go on mental, and sort of become really acutely interested in quality of life?
Good question.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's more like, one, you feel great doing all these sorts of things, and whether it's going to the gym or running or saunas or all that kind of stuff obviously has mental benefits to it. But like even just with like work, like I don't know how someone would go out and have like multiple days drinking and then show up to work on Monday and be fine. Like you kind of need to have a balance. And that's a major thing for me. Like it's obviously here and there you'll have big celebrations or whatever it is, but like having a general, like training 5-6 times a week, doing all those sorts of things like saunas, ice baths, getting 8 hours sleep, like it's kind of like a necessity to perform in business as well. So
That's
it's kind of like,
interesting.
yeah.
You guys,
I will add to that. Like Sam and I have, come in on Monday and we're, oh, how was your weekend? And we notice a visible difference, just let alone in productivity, but also just mental focus on the difference between like if we have a weekend where there's less sleep or more drinking.
Yeah.
Normally we have a big week coming up. We're like, all right, no drinking, get good sleep, because you definitely feel it. Like come Wednesday, Tuesday, you're worn out already.
Yeah.
I think another component is you probably got to put Rogan in there, Joe Rogan. I think he's kind of made health, longevity cool. Before that, I'm sure our age was kind of being like a rock star, being a party guy. That was kind of the cool thing. But I think Joe Rogan, I don't know, it's a lot of power to put on him, but he was kind of a part of a new shift where looking after yourself, being healthy was kind of the cool thing to do.
That's a good
and
point.
being productive. So
it's become, I think, I've got in my team, in my business, which Max leads, all in their 20s and all really health focused, all really good at what they do. As you say, like when you were in your 20s, I was the same. It was a completely different era, and you could, like, there was lots of drinking and drugs and all sorts of stuff, but that's what everyone was doing. Back in the early 2000s, I remember the year 2000, the front page of the Sunday Telegraph was "Ecstasy saves New Year's Eve." So it's like, because they're used to all these fights around and everyone was on ecstasy in the year 2000, and it's like there was like 3 arrests,
Wow.
So there was an era there, but I think we've now gone to this era where young people don't go out. It's so expensive for young people to go out on a Friday night and get on the piss at $13 a beer or something.
Yeah.
We used to go to the pub and it was $2 a beer. You take $20, you have 10 beers.
But that's like even Bondi nowadays, you go past at 6:30 p.m. and it's empty. And then you go past 6:30 a.m. it's heaving.
There's
all
no
the cafes,
nightclubs
everyone's
anymore.
training.
There's saunas and cold plunges.
Yeah.
And so it's become this whole shift in society. And the positive thing, and it's like when everyone around you is healthy and then you're not, and you're not looking after yourself, well, you're then the odd one out, And I used to be the other way around, like anyone really healthy that wasn't partying was probably the odd one out. So there's been a massive shift. I think, the world's so fast these days, like you just can't be lagging, and competitive as well, So I've seen a shift in just working with a young group all in their 20s, but, very different to the group of people I was around in my 20s.
Because this originally started, we were going to talk to people over 50, but it's sort of morphed a fair bit. I reckon we just talked to like everybody, male and female. Originally started male over 50. That's sort of our original thesis for Nick and I, mainly because we know a lot of people male over 50. But the more we think about it, the more we talk about it, and especially amongst you guys, I think it's probably will spill into every category. Every category. And then I think our research has got to sort of take us there, and who we talk to. I mean, I Nick, you asked me early on, I've always been a big believer in, and I've never had a strategy around these things, but I've always been a big believer in the 3 important things, that is sleep, rest, however you want to call that, exercise, and eating well. And my eating well is just as a matter of my family background. That's just how we ate, And I grew up in a time, by the way, there wasn't even any supermarkets. There was no shopping centres. When I was a young kid, there was no shopping centre. The very first shopping centre in Australia actually opened when I was 12 or 13 years of age.
Wait, where did you get food from then?
Just down the corner shop. There's like
the greengrocer,
greengrocer.
the butcher, and
there was a fruit bloke, and there was a butcher,
and
you get your eggs from the butcher as well.
It's like
that was it.
Very European.
Very European. You walked down there. You didn't catch a bus or whatever. Didn't get delivered. You had to walk down there and you do the shopping and cart it home. And so my food environment came from particularly my dad's side of the family. Like olive oil, like that. Let's call it the Mediterranean diet. We'll get into that in one of the episodes. But the real Mediterranean diet. But that type of food. So I've always eaten pretty well. I did knock myself around a little bit for a period of time there, in terms of booze but exercise would have been a bit important part of my life because I love exercise. I love sport. I think most Australians sort of love sport of some type. So I was always a competitor in that regard. But maybe now I've got some issues, having boxed for so long and so often. So, one of the experts I've been able to get on is a well-known expert in dementia and neurodegenerative diseases, and he will come on. He's agreed to come on. It's going to be really cool to talk to him, particularly in relation to myself, because he's doing a lot of tests on me at the moment. We're going to film a lot of these tests and show how it's all done, including blood tests that nobody normally does. So sleep regime. I grew up in a period when I was working, especially when I was working in the law firm. We had some clients who boasted in those days, we're talking about the 80s, boasted about getting 4 hours sleep a night. And I was thinking, what the fuck? Like, how can anyone survive on 4 hours sleep a night? And I used to think, you weak bastard, Mark, how come you need 8? But it's what I always try to get, and I still try to get it. But now everyone's talking about it. That's sort of like a de minimis thing. You've got to do that. So those 3 things, Nick. I never had a strategy around it. So you mentioned I've been living my life like that. Yeah, but only tactically, not strategically. So I never went around saying, I must have a strategy around sleep. So what does it involve to get a certain outcome? I must have a strategy around exercise. What's that involve? What is the outcome I'm looking for? And I must have a strategy around nutrition. Doesn't mean that you can't eat a pie or whatever. I'm just saying there are certain things you've got to get in your system. And there are certain things that are missing from your system. Even if you do eat them, you don't digest them for some reason. So you might have to find supplements and stuff like that.
One of the things just on that as well, and I don't think you've ever, as you said, you weren't consciously focusing on those different things.
Not as strategies.
But one thing I've learned about you early on, because I bump into you at various cafes at like 4:30 in the morning, is your routine. Yeah. So you've always had this routine where you get up early, you train, you then eat the same stuff in the same place, go to the office.
Habitual. I'm habitual.
All the time, weekends included. Like, how much has actually just moving and getting those things done, do you think that's like in terms of how you're made up, do you think like routine and just getting on with it, like not letting that opportunity to sleep in or those types of things, how much has routine been part of what you're...
Well, routine for me is just a way of keeping my mind from being in a state of like entropy. Like I like to try to keep my mind ordered as opposed to disordered. In a physics sense, I don't want my brain to be like an excited electron running around an atom, like going mental.
You're actually so nerdy.
Yeah.
He's a science geek.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why.
Well, I have been a science geek all my life.
Yeah.
So, I love science at school. And I've been buying American Scientific and
New Scientist and
all those magazines.
Love
and
it.
for 40 years, I'm still subscribed to them. I still get them. And but these days I just actually go down rabbit holes. I'll read something, then I'll get on the internet. I couldn't get on the internet because there was no internet, but now I just go right into sometimes I get too far in. But for me, to answer your question, my brain can get quite distracted if I don't keep my routine.
Yeah.
It's because it's part of my structure. So it's more a mindset that works for me. If I don't exercise, I can get down mentally. So that's more a technique to stop myself from experiencing something that I don't enjoy. And I don't want to take pills for it or whatever. Just works for me, I guess, is probably the answer. So I keep my routine because it works for me. And again, it was never really a strategy. It was more tactical. Like, this is just the way I operate better. Get up early, which means I've got to go to bed early. Eat certain foods because certain foods stop me from sleeping. Probably don't drink after a certain hour. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't ever drink, but I know whiskey company for fuck's sake. So I like a whiskey every now and then.
Contractually obliged.
Exercise, like you're just talking about with food and sleep. Like if I don't exercise, I struggle to sleep. So they kind of overlap in terms of like.
Same. So I don't feel relaxed.
Yeah.
I don't feel. I actually want to go to bed feeling really not exhausted, but like I'm tired. And then I think I might sleep better like that way. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but and they're the sorts of things we're going to explore. Like one of the things I want to look at is the loss of mitochondrial function as we get older, and the resultant lack of ATP. Therefore, no ATP, no energy. And I'm looking forward to talking to someone about that. Like. Getting some dude on, male or female, but someone on who can explain that process to us. And then is there some way I can re-excite my mitochondria to become much more efficient, to produce the same levels of ATP from the same other sources that I used to be able to do, so I can sort of get back some of my energy, because I know I'm 68, I'm starting to lose that energy that I remember I would have had just 10 years ago, for argument's sake. I was fighting 10 years ago. And I I could do all sorts of things, like in terms of training. I thought to myself, fuck, I don't know if I could do that now. Or I wonder if I can do it. That's sort of what this is all about. Can I do something or close to it? Can I get to a 10% variation on it?
I reckon one of those, and we'll go through all this, but when you used to fight, and I'd talk to you in February in a certain year, and you stupidly have agreed to fight someone like Danny Green in October, and who's 40 years younger than you and a world champion boxer, that it wasn't about the fight. It was about that whole journey of then you going from February through to October, and you became like obsessive about your training and everything else. And I think that's a bit of a hack as well. Like some of those things to be able to go, like I ran the City to Surf last year for the first time, and I trained for it. But this year I really trained for it, and it gave me something to train towards. I got a little running group, ran this morning every Thursday, and then adding some more in. But getting a group together and a purpose of actually doing something. It wasn't about City to Surf was great, but it's the training, the build up to it. And I reckon some of those things as well, of being interested in things, of just not going to the gym every day and just becoming monotonous. Like some of those things to make the journey interesting, and then you boxing, and then you've done judo and jiu-jitsu and...
Well, it's funny you should say, because I think that actually takes us into that whole community process. So, we talk about, there's shows on TV called The Blue Zone, or they're talking about, how people in Nicaragua and various other places around the world live much longer, and they put it down to diet. But a big part of this is lifestyle and community.
Yeah.
And we don't live in those environments here. We all live in Sydney, but we don't live in those environments in Australia. It's a harder thing to achieve. But I think by doing what you've just done with the City to Surf and what I used to do, boxing training, because I used to train with the Coppers, and they're all my mates, and we used to have a laugh, and we'd have a cup of coffee after it, and catch up once or twice a year for a Christmas lunch and stuff like that. I think those things sort of force you to build communities. And then once you're in the community, and when it comes to exercise especially, you tend to compete a little bit, be a bit more competitive.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, to me, one of the things I want to uncover here is that we probably can't live that life of Nicaragua where you're walking up the mountain every day and you're collecting the water at the top of the hill, or you're taking the water from the bottom to the top of the hill, and you come back down and you're all singing and dancing at 10 o'clock at night with your Greek families and, drinking broth and, like all that sort of stuff.
Unrealistic.
Yeah. Well, it's okay there, but or in Okinawa in Japan, they're doing the same thing, but just a different type of food. Because I think the community part of it's really important, and we should get a psych on here too, or at least a neuropsych to come on.
There is a lot of research looking at the connection between longevity and social connections.
Yeah.
And there's one paper, I think it came out 2022, and that it showed that you don't necessarily need to be hanging out with large groups of people every single day. It could be something as simple as going to an art class once a month, or having someone who visits you once a week. So it's really cool. I feel like a lot of people as they get older might feel lonely and might feel like they need to have all these friends, or the same number of friends that they had when they were in their 20s or 30s. But that's actually not true. It can be just like little bits of connection that actually really help your health and your happiness and drive longevity. So I think hopefully that people can take something really positive from that. If you feel lonely, it's not about like the number of connections. It's just about doing something that makes you happy.
And I think we should do an app on that, with someone who can talk to us about that sort of stuff. Because, if we go back to the beginning, what we first started talking about, there's all these people out there offering us advice and or putting themselves up as pinnacles of great health, but a lot of it's unattainable. Like I really have got a deal of respect for Peter T, for example, right? But no one can. I can't live his life, go to the gym twice a day, and spend 2.5 hours at the gym every day, and do my own blood
not many
tests.
can.
No.
And it's a bit like saying, well, the Blue Zone, that's how you live your life. I can't do that either. I live in Sydney. I don't live at the bottom of the mountain, and I don't have a massive big family community who I can spend every night of the week with and have dinner with and dance and sing Greek songs or an Okinawa or whatever. So we need to sort of, I said earlier, democratize
Yeah.
all these things and explain how they work.
And things that don't necessarily cost lots of money. Because something that frustrates me a little is that you get a lot of experts, again, the inverted commas, who are online and they're saying you need to take this supplement or this peptide or inject yourself with this hormone. And they're never saying, oh, go outside or see a friend or, do a social activity, because those things are free and they don't get any money from that. So I get really frustrated because there are a lot of really great interventions that are super simple, super cheap, and you can just implement them right away. But people often they skip right over that and go to the supplements, to the drugs and things. I think that is something that is really a characteristic of our modern society. Like, we want a silver bullet, we want a drug or some sort of pharmaceutical thing that can just fix our problem, rather than look at, okay, well, what was causing the issue in the first place? Let's actually put some different things in place to solve that. So I'm really excited to see all the different kinds of interventions that you can do.
Well, I'll try the peptides. I mean, I actually will. I'll try for a month. I'll give it a crack. Just see what it does.
Yeah.
I don't even know what peptides I'm going to try, but I'll try.
I think that's all interesting. The other thing as well, like, we're in an era now where, in history, where if you've been overweight, you need to adjust what you're eating and, get some exercise in. Now you just get an injection, Ozempic, so we are going for these easy solutions. And it's like, it's Ozempic's everywhere. And it's like, well, I get worried about those types of things. Anyone I know that is on Ozempic looks unhealthy. And instead of doing it the right way and, having the right nutrition and, the right exercise and those types of things, so this is the era we're in where people are getting injected and taking all different things, rather than actually having just foundation health and
Nick,
fitness.
I think we've got to be careful. If I'll be the black hat for a sec. I think we've got to be careful. I think we need to talk about this stuff, Ozempic and peptides and all those sort of things, and I think we need to try it, or I need to try it. No, I don't need Ozempic, but certainly I'll try the peptides, just see what it does, because there might be something in it. And I don't think, I reckon it's really important that we don't want to tell anybody that this is the right way to do anything. Let them make their own call.
Yeah.
Off the back. And let's get the experts in.
Of course.
So let's get both sides of the story in. So let's get someone to come and say, okay, tell me about Ozempic. What are the upsides? What's the downsides? And because there probably are some people who, I don't know, mentally are never going to be able to do what you and I do. Go to the gym or go for a run.
I think you are right that, there are drugs like semaglutide, which is marketed as Ozempic, which reduce your blood glucose levels and increase insulin sensitivity. And that is something that has been associated with longevity and cell repair mechanisms and stuff like that. So there are certain compounds and peptides and hormones that will have an action, and maybe for some people that could play a role in their life if they can afford it, if they can implement that, and if the benefits outweigh the risks. So I think it is good for us to explore that. And then on the other hand, look at the other interventions that won't require that sort of supplementation.
Look at everything, because I don't know, I don't really give a shit what anyone does. If they want to do something in their life, if it makes them feel good,
Totally,
go for it. But what we're here to do is say, well, it might make you feel good today, but it might not make you feel good next week. There could be some downside risk of it that you don't know about. And let's get some person to come and tell us what that is. But at the same time, if this is the only way you're going to get to a better point, a better place, then maybe these are the things you should understand about the net effect, but go for it.
I was actually just going to say on that, and a question for you, Maddie, like all these peptides and Ozempic and what's around now in 2024, imagine what's going to be around in 2028. And it's like, from a science perspective, what's your take on, where science and health is sort of meeting, science, health, medicine, those types of things? What's your take on where all of that sort of meets?
Oh, it's extremely exciting. I almost wish that I was still in the lab doing research so I could be directly involved, but now I kind of get to watch all of these amazing developments. I think the main thing is that health is going to become more personalized. So it will kind of be like people doing your journey, Mark, where they'll look at their specific situation and they'll look at their health picture, and then they'll try different interventions that are right for them, and they'll be able to measure lots of different biomarkers in their body, like levels of hormones or, I don't know, their blood glucose levels, their cholesterol, but they might even be able to look at things like their gene expression and things like epigenetics and so on. And then they'll be able to target their treatments based on that. So at the moment, that sort of level of treatment is available to just a few select people who choose to go down that pathway and can do so. But I think that that's going to become more and more accessible for people, which is really, really exciting. But I think it's important for us to also not lose sight of just going back to the basics in that process as well, and making sure that we're living healthy lives, so that these sorts of interventions and these sorts of pharmaceuticals, drugs, maybe gene therapies and things like that will be additive rather than trying to sort of fix a problem or Band-Aid over something.
Also around that as well, I'm looking forward to digging into an interest of mine is medicinal cannabis. So CBD, especially around concussion, to look into those studies as well, because even like CBD for joints, and again, whether it's a placebo thing that's going on, but you know, for me, that's fixed knees, lower back for me and different things so I can train.
Helps people sleep.
But as well, there's, you know, scientific research out there that says that, you know, young kids that, especially playing sports like rugby and AFL, if they do get a big concussion, of actually having some CBD, not with THC, but, you know, so it's good to understand all those things. I was even just thinking like, as the old, you know, analogy of saying, you know, how much money we spend on servicing our cars, and you get a full report back from the mechanic of all the different things that we don't do that as humans. You know, we go to the doctors when we're sick, and then they take our bloods, as you say, and they send it off and then come back and say, yeah, everything's fine. It's like, I actually want to know the parts of the car, you know, all these different things, the brain, the nutrition, all the different things that keep us alive and keep us healthy, you know. So
yeah, I'm really passionate about that too. I think people having more tools to be able to see this medical information about their own bodies and understand what's going on
relative to your cohort. So as well, so there needs to be measurement.
Yes.
If I can't measure it, I can't fix it.
Yeah. So would you say you're someone who the more information you have to make a decision, the better?
Yeah.
Because I know that there are some people out there who maybe they have family members who have had cancer or neurodegenerative disease who prefer not to know. And I totally respect everyone's, you know, choices there. But I would agree with you. I think for me, I would like to know just so that I can take actions now. Even I'm 26, even the things I do now will really impact how long I live and how healthy I am later. And for you too.
That's the story, in that you guys have a big advantage over me, hopefully, in that, you know, you will be able to you'll be able to control the outcomes a bit better. We didn't, like, I was hanging around in the 80s, like, you know, it was Miami Vice, you know, like get off your head.
Well, even
you know,
that
go for it. You know, like,
even that 4,000 weeks.
that freaked
you
me
said
out
the other day. Oh, that freaked me out,
When
because
you
I was
said
like, I'm already quarter.
When
way
you said it to
through.
me at lunch yesterday, I wasn't aware of the book, and I then worked out. I had dinner with some friends last night, and we're out, and I'm interested in that. I even just did it on my phone and worked out it's 75.6 years or something, and then go, okay, I'm 45. I'm
past halfway.
yeah, past halfway, and it's like there's a bit of doom and gloom at the end of the.
Well, it's confronting, because, you know, everybody should do that calculation. Like, how many weekends have I? Because we're going to work most of those 80 years or 4,000 weeks. We're going to work most of those weeks, and then on some weekends you're going to, you know, you're going to have things you have to do. Then there's going to be periods which are your own periods, your own weekends. But there's not many weekends. It's not that much.
No.
You know, it's not a lot, and there'll be times when you're sick.
Yeah.
So that's one you maybe can control. I got to eliminate. I can't control what's been destined for me, and I mean in a DNA sense, what's set out for me relative to my genetics. That's going to kill me. I can't fix that. But what I can do is make sure that I have the best run of all time.
Yes.
Especially with like the speed of life now. Like even like I don't know about you guys, but the last like 3 years feels way quicker than any other year. So I'm like, hearing that the other day, I was like, holy shit.
I was actually going to ask a question. Sam and Jonah, you obviously make Mark look good with the podcast. We need a very good
And all
job.
the lights. Thank you.
But let me ask you guys a question. What do you guys want out of this? You obviously know this guy well now, you know, the way he operates and the way he ticks. What do you guys want to learn out of this?
Yeah, I think going on to Max's point as well, just optimizing your health mentally, physically, because I think mental health is a big problem these days, especially with the phone, the technology and stuff like that, first off. So I want to just know scientifically what the effects are the mobile phone does, the technology does on the health, maybe artificial intelligence down the line. But then also, I think a big one is the testosterone problem as well. That's just something that
Too much, not enough.
No, there's definitely a crisis.
I know, over here it's not enough.
We need to talk about this. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is interesting because there's definitely, I think is there science around that? I don't know what I see on social media, that there's a crisis with testosterone for younger men.
Well, not enough.
Not enough
Oh, really?
compared to what it used to be
Max
like.
is not having that problem.
Yeah, no,
As he goes, not really.
And so I'm kind of curious about that because, it's a trend right now. Everyone's on TRT, especially in America, that kind of stuff. People my age are on it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, people are doing it.
I can tell you just no. No. We don't want this.
I'm interested about, the hormone
Well, it's good to
conversation.
get. So we'll get a urologist. So, but that's probably more a specific episode. Like that's on urology. It's probably we'll do that after we do the first 8 or 9 episodes. We'll get into the specifics after that in terms of our planning day today.
That's a good one, yeah.
We'll get into the specifics. We'll say, let's talk about urology of men, which includes, kidneys and everything else. But let's, and by the way, how does testosterone replacement therapy, where's it work? He'll probably say it's not meant for you guys, your age.
Yeah.
Because and probably the first thing he'll say is, let's measure it.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the measure of your testosterone? If you're and how does the range work? So, and where do you fit in the range? Do you have to be right in the middle, at the top, at the bottom? What happens? And then what is TRT likely to do? So, maybe you get a hit of TRT and see TRT is a problem if you've got prostate cancer.
Yeah.
But if you don't have prostate cancer, he told me that's okay to take.
Sam's just asking for a mate.
Because
that's all.
people don't believe me when I tell them that you're 68. They go, mate, there's no way.
Yeah.
Well, I don't take TRT,
Okay.
but I've been through the process of grilling him hard about how this all works. And I don't want to sort of person who goes to see a doctor and goes, oh, okay, no way.
Yeah.
I'll go and talk to him about some sort of abstract that I've read recently that said blah, blah, and I'll test them. I'll push them. I'll email them my stuff. And one of the things I want to get out of this is we should do this with our
totally.
medical advisors.
Yeah.
You should, and one of the things that's going to come out of this is I hope is that we should only choose medical advisors who are open to us asking them the questions, because and it is incumbent upon us to go and do our own work and research. And even if we're wrong, it doesn't matter. Ask the question, and your advisor can say, "Well, no, well done, but no, it's not right."
It doesn't need to be a black box.
No.
Because I feel like a lot of people,
It
they
is
go to the
at
doctor
the
and they're
moment.
like, fix this issue that I have. I don't need to know why it happened or what you're going to do. Just fix it.
Yeah.
But how are we going to live really long and healthy lives and, optimize ourselves to be the best we can be without knowing these things?
And we've got to be involved to do that.
Yes, we do. Well, something I found that was interesting is that average life expectancy, specifically in wealthy countries, has been rising steadily for the last few hundred years.
I will say, though, in Australia, in the last 12 months, has gone backwards.
Yes, so I was about to bring that up. So Australian
For
life
men.
expectancy for men and women actually
Went back for
has
them too, okay.
decreased by 0.1 years just recently. So there's likely to be because of COVID. But in other wealthy countries, for example, the US and the UK, even before COVID, the average life expectancy growth was actually plateauing. So I feel like maybe we're getting to a point where we are seeing really good advances in medical technologies and we can do a lot of different interventions. But if we don't do things with our lifestyle and take more charge of our health, we're not going to keep increasing our lifespan. We might just hit the top.
Plateau.
Yeah. And I think that might have already been happening in the US and UK.
Well, I hope that's not the case. Hope you're wrong.
I hope so too.
Jonah?
For me,
Yeah.
I guess there's 2 reasons. Main one is I want to optimize the right now. Time's very finite and we're only in the present. The future's ahead of us, past is behind us. And I want to feel good in the moment. I want to be able to be the best version of myself. I want to be able to focus when I'm at work. I love sport. I grew up in a pretty active household. So I want to be able to play tennis, play golf. But I think this might just be my parents' upbringing, but I think I really want to dial in just the main things that we can do before we get to supplements, like the sleep, diet, and exercise. but then also like the financial side as well. Like I want to find out what I can be doing at my age to afford all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then also set myself up for what Peter Attia calls the marginal decade, the last 10 years of my life. I think it'd be awesome to sit and experience my great grandkids.
Yeah.
I think that'd be unbelievable. But also to be able to, you know, sit down on the floor and play with them and be active. But because I'm young, I'm fortunate enough to have a long runway with that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So if I start early, I can get to that. But I think that'd be really cool at the end of my life to have a big family and, you know, be able to travel with them or do that sort of stuff. I want to learn about the health span type of thing, because I would hate to get to, let's say, 70 and my last 10 years I'm in bed, I'm sick, I'm unwell.
And a burden on everybody.
Yeah, I don't want to be that. I want to be the best version of myself, and I think this is a real cool space to dig into that sort of stuff.
So, let's do a baseline day. Second episode. First, after this.
We'll do a beep test.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, please, yes.
Yeah, we'll do a VO2 Max. We'll do a VO2 Max test.
Yeah.
We can do that by a beep test if you want, and you can calculate the VO2 Max, or you can put me through a VO2 Max, and we can do a metabolic rate test, which is and we'll do a DEXA, and then we'll get someone to talk us through all those things. What's the DEXA do?
Yeah, that'd be good.
How's that been interpreted? I've been having DEXA for years, so I can actually bring all my old DEXA scans in from 9-10 years ago.
Oh, that's a great idea, and they can look at them over
look
time.
at the difference.
Yeah.
And just see the change of muscle mass relative to fat, bone density, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I did a metabolic rate test 10 years ago. I'd be interested to see if my metabolic rate's changed, gone up or down. As a result of my metabolism slowing, it's probably gone down, which means I need to burn more calories or eat less calories, one of the two. VO2 Max, they're only sort of more recently talked about it, but I have done beep tests before, but Max has dying on me to do a beep test. But that'd be fun.
But even all those scans that you're talking about and have been talking about since we've started this whole thing, like you talk about them, but I don't actually know what they mean.
Well,
DEXA, like all these things, but generally, like for our audience to actually know what it is and why you're getting it and what it tells you, like that's in a simplified form.
Yeah, we can get the dude who does it, and just say, mate, explain this thing to me
in layman's terms.
Because normally what I do is I go. So I used to get a guy called Jordan Sullivan, who some of you know, who's the fight dietitian. He's a dietitian, but he does all the UFC guys, and we've had him on the show. So when I was prepping for a fight, if I had to lose, I always like to drop weight before a fight because I want to get into the lowest weight division I can. Because hopefully I can get an advantage out of that, which everyone does. Except for the time I fought Danny Green, I had to put weight on because Danny was 91 kilos. He was a cruiserweight. And I was walking around 85 kilos. I know. I was walking around and 91 kilos cut.
Wow.
So I put on 4 kilos over a 6-month period, but mostly just muscle. But it didn't help me. All it did was slow me down, which is interesting. So, but I used to do DEXAs to see where I could lose fat. Because, there's no point saying, you want to lose 5 kilos of fat if you don't have 5 kilos of fat to lose.
Or you could be losing it around your organs, places where you might want that.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with this stuff. And everyone's out there going, lose weight. Okay, well, where are you going to lose the weight? What weight do you have to lose? Especially my age, you don't want to lose all your fat. You need it. You need a little bit of fat. You know what I mean? So Geordie might be worth talking to, but Geordie would say, I don't want you less than 12%. Fat at your age. He said because it could be dangerous, and you don't know what you got to lose until you go and get a DEXA, and you don't know how to lose it if you haven't done a metabolic rate test because you don't even know how many calories you actually burn. All these people doing calorie counting, they don't even know how many. They might know how many calories they eat, but they don't know how many calories they can't eat to get in a deficit.
Yeah,
because they don't even know what their calorie. You can make assumptions about training and stuff like that and walking and whatever, but you can't make an assumption. You can make an assumption about what you burn and don't burn, but that's the largest amount of calories you consume is what you burn at rest, like when you're breathing and your heart going and your brain, all those things you have no control over, are automatic. So, that's the first episode.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. It's a scientific experiment.
And it's like a bit of an experiment. We've got something we can deliver.
Yeah.
And I went over to the US this year, and I did the Prenuvo test, which is a lot of our listeners won't know what that is. It doesn't exist in Australia. I don't know why, but pretty expensive. But nonetheless, it's a big deal in the US, and I went to the one in LA. So it's a full body MRI scan. It's you're in there for an hour and a half in the coffin. That's what it feels like. With all those noise, bam, 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 bam. There's all these noises, like, because that's the way MRI works. And it's pretty freaky. After the first, after 45 minutes, I thought I was going to get a bit mental, and I felt like pressing the buzzer to let me fuck it out of here, because I didn't know if I was ever going to get out. I felt like I was in there forever. And I opened my eyes a few times. You shouldn't open your eyes in those things. I opened my eyes a few times, and the thing's right there, and it's all dark, and I'm like, I can't move. I'm squashed in like this. I took some video of it. So I got some video.
What did you get out of it? Like, what was
it's a full body scan, and it looks for any unusual things that might be a mass growing in you. Mm-hmm. So they come up with a number of things for me. They come up with 5 things, all of which I've sent to different specialists to say, what is that? And then they've gone off and done more tests. So it's Prenuvo, and I've got the whole report, and we can talk to various doctors about the report. So I've done that as a baseline already. I'm not going to go do it again because, my God, you should only have so many CBITs of radiation exposure in any 1 year.
Yeah, you don't want to be...
Because I fly a lot, which is like every week, I get a certain amount of CBITs, and I've actually done the calculation of where I'm at in terms of MRIs, X-rays, aeroplanes, and what everyone experiences just at sea level. Yeah. And I'm getting close to the maximum for any 1 year. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't roll over to another year. But anyway, so I don't want to have to go get any more of those things done for a while. But I've had that done. So we can give that to the doctors too. So isn't that funny? I was talking to the neuroscientist guy, and they found a little vein on my brain, one side of my brain. And the report said this can be normal. Like, it's not a thing. They have it in levels of alertness, high, medium, low, and they put in the low level. But I didn't really know who else to ask about it, and I asked him about it. And he said, I better see that. I want to see the image, because I was talking to him about, Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So interesting to see what he said. I haven't sent it to him yet, so interesting to hear what he's got to say about that. But no, I'm digressing. So episode 2, I've got a guest. That we can reach out to, and his name is Matthew Kiernan. Matthew's the CEO of Neura, which is a facility that's newly built in Randwick, which is part of the Prince of Wales Hospital and the University of New South Wales. He's an accomplished neuroscientist. He's also a medical practitioner. But he leads the whole program out there, and one of the things he looks at is dementia. And as I understand it, dementia is one of the most highly Googled items for people over 60 years of age. So it's one of the biggest concerns of people over 60. If I ask any of my mates, what do you think worries you most as you get older, they say dementia. Every one of them. And it bothers me too. So I think we should do some episodes on the 4 big things, the 4 big killers. Neurodegenerative diseases, so we can talk to him about generally that, but in particular dementia when it comes to me. And given I've put myself not in such a great position relative to what might sort of fast-track dementia in terms of brain trauma.
Is that like specifically the head and brain?
Knocks, yep. And like mini concussions is probably the best way. But I've had major ones too, but I've had lots of mini ones, thousands of them, literally thousands of them. So I reckon Alzheimer's - dementia would be a good one to kick off. But as a broader part of the neurodegenerative disease, which includes Parkinson's, motor neuron disease, which killed my mother, and also multiple sclerosis, those sorts of things. Just talking about that sort of stuff. He'd be great to talk to, and I know him quite well. He actually treated my mother for motor neuron disease when she had it, and he was at the Brain and Mind Centre in those days at Sydney University. And he's going to do a whole lot of tests on me, so I'm actually currently going through that process now. More about me just knowing what's going on. so happens I have the E4 allele which is can be a marker or has a correlation, not necessarily a causation, but a correlation to dementia.
Is that both alleles or just
Both.
one? Oh, okay.
I have both. So, which is something I only just found out about. So he wants me to do some glucose monitoring. He wants me to go and get a glucose test. Where he wants just I have the thickening of the tendons in my hands, which is known as the Viking gene, but he says there's some relationship between that and dementia as well. And that's actually happened to me over the last, in one hand, it's happened to me over the last 18 months. It's got quite thick and quite sore. My grandfather was a diabetic and type 2 diabetic, died from diabetes, from a metabolic disease. So it's in my family. So these are really interesting things. And he talks about, ApoB lipoprotein markers in your blood. And so he'd be really good to talk about that whole general neurodegenerative stuff. I reckon that could be a good episode. It's also access for us.
Do you think he'll talk about whether it's like all those things are hereditary and all that
Yeah,
kind
he
of
will,
thing?
definitely. Yeah. So I've also gone and done a little while ago. I went and a guy came on our show. I don't know if you guys are around in those days, but a guy came on our show. His name is Mclachlan, Keon. Matt was the CEO and founder of a business called Genius, spelled GENIE, capital U, capital S, which was a business that was going around looking at biomarkers for neurodegenerative diseases. And so he's no longer the CEO, but I actually met up with him yesterday. And he's still involved, but he's not running it anymore. And I got him 2 years ago, and he's well known to the brain and mindset. But I got him to do blood tests to look at all the genetic mapping that they've done for mutations around things like MND, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and dementia. I'm going to get the report. I can't find the bloody report. I'm going to get the report sent off to Matthew at Neura, so we can build a whole big picture about the sort of stuff you can go and get done. It's not that expensive. If you're worried about it, it's definitely not expensive. And just see what it all means. So to answer your question,
Peace of
Max,
mind.
and it is about peace of mind. And it's also about having baselines. So if there's a change in a couple of years' time, and what are the things I need? What do I need to be looking at to see if are there any changes? Because this is a big topic at the moment, and rugby league players talking about a concussion, dementia. I got good mates who've got dementia now from playing footy,
and people who've been in big car accidents.
It's not just footy.
People
you're right.
who have had, DV. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, especially with DV, and even little kids falling over, or older adults falling over and hitting their head. And what are we looking for here? And so I think that's a really big topic, neurodegenerative diseases and how you've lived your life, and what net effects and what should I be looking for? And are there cures for these? Or not cures, but are there things that will optimize your life during that period? There's been a recent discovery or a recent medical discovery around a new pill that helps dementia. So episode after that will be cardiology, so we get a cardiologist. Go through the whole. Then we need to talk to someone about cancer. I mean, cancer is like all pervasive, of course. That's the second biggest killer in the world. We need to find. We'll get someone from St. Vincent's to talk about that, and then I think we need to talk to someone about metabolic disease. So we should just cover off the three main things. After that, sleep. So we should talk to someone about like a sleep expert. If you want, I'll go to one of those places where they put all the things on me, and do a sleep analysis of me, and then exercise. And Andy Galpin, who's also considered one of the best, but he's also he's been on all the shows. He come back to us and he said, "What did he say? Count me in." I wasn't sure if it was a bot saying it though, because I thought it was a bot type sound, but because I sent him a note on Instagram, DM'd him, and he wrote, "Count me in," pretty quick.
That sounds like a legally binding agreement.
Yeah, to me it is. But then I went back to him But I wouldn't mind traveling over there for some of these things if, because that's actually pretty good content if we can get into their territory. Like,
Jonah's agreeing with that.
Put me through. You said yesterday if we go there, you're coming.
I'm coming, mate.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, you want to do the test.
I want to do everything.
Yeah. What's he?
I've got a self-interest in this, mate. Don't worry about that.
Well, that old horse called self-interest, he's in every race, that, don't you?
Exactly.
Yeah, every race, and he gets whipped pretty hard towards the end. So, and then a nutrition discussion about what is. I don't even know what nutrition is, and supplements. Nutrition and supplements, they sort of go hand in hand.
I think it's important as well, the financial side of things.
Oh yeah, maybe they should be
Peter,
able to.
They're all multis. These guys, they've got some serious coin, just for everyday Aussies who.
Yeah.
How much is this going to cost us,
Yeah, well, I reached out to Paul Clitheroe. Now, I know a lot of people don't know who he is, right? You guys probably don't know who he is. Fordo does. But Paul's like about my age, maybe a bit older, I'm not sure. But he used to run a show called The Money Show in Australia for Channel 9. I reckon he's one of the most accomplished financial planners because it's about planning. Having enough coin for when you need to do all this shit. Like, they might need to take supplements, they might need to employ a personal trainer for something or whatever. Personalize things like Maddie was saying before. How do you personalize these things? You need people to help you. You need coin to do that. It's not cheap. And I don't think it's ever been calculated. People, this is maybe a thing we can talk to the government about too, but like you guys made superannuation compulsory, which is a great thing. Good on you, Paul Keating. But it was in the 90s when at that point, we're only going to live to 80. In the 1990s, introduced it. And so when they did the calculation, they said everyone's going to stop working at 65. So if we put out, 12% of your wages, make an assumption what your wage is and what the wage rises will be, we'll build a model that says when Maddie turns 65, she'll have enough money as a result of 12% of her salary being put away by her employer. She'll have enough money to retire comfortably. But comfortably means, the assumption around comfortably is that she'll live to 81 and not much more. If all of a sudden, because of health tech and these sorts of shows and everyone else's shows, that we start living to 100, where are we going to get that extra 20 years worth of money from? And that's a question no one's really answered. And at that stage of your life as well, rather than going to aged care, the ultimate thing that government wants is people to stay in their homes as long as possible. And so if you need some hired help in at some stage or you don't have family around to support, like that's when you really need money at that back end. Like, yes, to be able to afford this stuff at the moment. But as you say, if you do live an extra 15 years, you need a budget for that. Like that's the time you really need help, On that thesis I just went through then, you could have no money. You could actually spend all your money by the time you're 80.
Well, do you think it needs to be thought of as like a expense where you have like rent, food and groceries, and then like this is almost like a cut of your pay to put towards this sort of thing?
I think a new model, it needs to be remodeled. That's the point, I think. We're still living in the 90s today, economically, in terms of how we are preparing for our retirement. Now, Australia is the world's supermodel when it comes to making sure that we have enough money when we retire. Most of the countries, what they rely on is the pensions scheme in the country, and that's just a massive toll on the government. Australia's, like, we're considered to be one of the best in the world. But I'm now saying it's not.
So you're saying the maths is wrong? Like the
model is wrong.
The model is wrong.
If we live longer.
Yeah.
Because the model is based on the average lifespan. It's just a mathematical model, and you put some assumptions in. One of the assumptions is we'll live on average to 81, and we'll retire 65, and the average wage is blah. And the other assumption is we're going to put 12% away. So, answer your question, Max. Maybe the government needs to change the superannuation rules. Say, look, if you put in 12% from your employer, and you can put another 12% in yourself or whatever, that's a tax deduction too.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's not. Maybe they need to encourage us to prepare to live a longer period. And maybe this is something, and maybe there needs to be some research on all this, and perhaps we might even go to the government and say, we need a grant to work through this process.
The Project 100 grant.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some, I'll put some money, we'll get some other people put some money, and we'll make a grant.
Yeah.
For some more research on this stuff.
Just on that as well, I find, when I speak to people close to me at Max's age, like when I ask them about like what they're striving for, financial security is a really important thing for them. And as well, getting onto the property ladder, it's increasingly difficult to do that these days for young people. But I think as well, like going into this, again, the world's changed and this whole new generation coming through are sort of cluing on to going, they don't want to go and work for the big guy for 45 years. And then over that period, hopefully get a couple of promotions and then get to a point and realize they've sort of wasted their life. They've clued on to trying to have a bit more balance. But obviously that with that approach, you're not working hard and trying to climb the ladder. So I think it's even people at Max's age in their 20s of going, what do I need to do now in terms of understanding like how to invest, in the right way, how to get in the property market, all those types of things. Because if you build those right financial foundations in your late 20s, early 30s, like, when you do hit 65, rather than getting to 55 and thinking, shit, I need to take my health and wealth seriously, like how do young people who are clued on to go, well, as you say, like there needs to be a strategy with this, not just the health side of things, but
a wealth strategy.
The wealth strategy.
And it's funny you should say, because as you know, I did something with Afterpay the other day, and they just commissioned a study on Gen Z, of which is many of the people in this room, excluding you and I, Nick. And the massive disconnect between Gen Z and older generations, all our older generations, and how Gen Z wants to run their life, their work life and their personal life, how they feel as though the disconnect between them and the cost of living and the let's call it the property market. And actually having enough money when they retire and what does retirement look like is crazy. And retailers, all retailers and governments are not addressing it. By the time 2030 comes along, there'll be a whole new way of retailers people like Afterpay. Afterpay is not a buy now, pay later business. Afterpay has tapped into young people don't want to borrow money, but they still want to buy that thing.
Yeah. Wait, what was the disconnect? Was it just different mindset between
totally different mindsets? And it's what Nick's done and what I've done is sort of unreachable,
right?
To some extent. And I think governments need to start to address this. And so it was not only talking about government's got to accept that people in Gen Z will live longer and may well be running into a big problem, especially if they can't get on the property ladder because they won't have anywhere to live. And we all know what rents are doing. So you don't want to be turning 70 and maybe have a little bit of illness, but be okay. You're going to live to 90 and be still renting.
And there's less opportunity these days as well because, the way that businesses are downsizing and bringing in AI and bots and different things as well, like there is genuinely less opportunity. When I left school 27 years ago, there was just so much opportunity. People can go out and get jobs in banking, finance and construction and insurance and trades and, going to university, but there's a completely different mindset these days.
So I think I think that needs to be talked about. It's a little bit outside the health span stuff, but it's about how do you afford health span, lifespan, and who's addressing this? Like, whose responsibility is it? And I know, a lot of people don't like Paul Keating, but one thing about him, he's smart and he had courage. And it takes a lot of courage to launch what he launched because he had to confront employers to say, you now will take 9% superannuation out and you'll pay it for your employees. It's like a tax on employers. But I actually think it was a good thing to do. It took a lot of courage, and I'll be interested to see whether current governments of either colour are prepared to have that courage and address this issue. I think we're actually going to uncover a big issue.
Yeah.
A really big issue. Affordability of living healthily.
Yeah, especially like our generation. That's so interesting.
It shouldn't be just Nick and I's generation being able to enjoy this new thing called healthspan.
Yeah.
Because you guys are going to actually live longer than all of us, just naturally.
Yeah.
But the question is, are you equipped to live it the way we will live it?
And do you reckon then from a government perspective that they would recognise that this new generation coming through is going to put less strain on the health system? If more and more people are aware of their health and fitness and those types of things, is that going to affect long term the way that, you know, if there's less and less obesity and diabetes and all these different things going on, because, you know, a lot more health conscious. You know, anyway, these are all things to...
This is cool stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a bit of fun with this.
I was going to suggest, as we go through this journey, we should do this catch-up throughout the journey, because I think it's as there's more discovery and we start digging into episodes and you got...
Well, let's find out what we've discovered.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. Let's sit down and like get a couple of episodes out and just sit back and say, okay, well, what the fuck did we learn from that? People might be interested to see what they might get, our followers might come back and say, well, can you look at this stuff?
Yeah.
And we should have, I don't know if you can open a section where people can actually say what they would like us to address.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
100, here we come.
Let's go.
Thank God it's a long way off for most of us. Well, thanks, guys. That's going to be great. I'm pretty pumped.